Well, hey, welcome back to the Pastor Pod. We're here for another exciting episode, episode 84. And if you're new with us, I'm Josh. I'm a pastor in Venice, Florida, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Jay Mudd. How's it going today, buddy?
I'm doing well. I've got if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it's a pink, refreshing drink here. Um, some kind of, I don't know what it is. It's not, no sugar, no nothing like that. You know what it is? It's one of those
Is
Celsius
it like
packets.
Plexi something or?
No, it's a Celsius packet. You
Oh,
know what
Celsius
Celsius is?
packet. Yep,
And I just
Celsius.
add water
Okay.
to it.
Does it have the caffeine
And
in it? I drink the
I don't,
Celsius drinks sometimes. They got a punch.
I don't know. I don't know if it's got anything in it. I don't know what it's got. I like the taste. I actually mix it with a polar seltzer water. So
Okay.
doubling up the flavors, I guess. I don't know.
That's
Spicing up
awesome.
my life.
That's
Things are
great.
well, man. As you know, we're coming off the holiday weekend or weekday. Isn't it weird when the holiday falls in the weekday in the middle of the week?
Yeah. Yeah. On a
I
Tuesday.
figured I figured no one would be working on Monday, but a lot of people worked on Monday, and then a lot of people aren't
Hmm.
working on the day after. It's weird. It's just weird. When do you take off? Some people just took the whole week off. They started celebrating on Sunday.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Who
Yeah.
knows? So yeah. So I'm doing well. Coming off of a party at my house, I had people over yesterday. That always energizes me is when I have party at my house, people at my house. I like
It's
people.
always good. You guys know how to do it right, so that's always good.
I think so. We enjoy it. My kids get into it. My kids really get into hosting people and having people around, things of that
Hmm.
sort. So it's a big deal, and it energizes me, but it drains my wife. We have that
Yes.
contrasting way it works out. So my wife gets drained when people are around. I get energized. How about you and
Yeah.
Cassidy? What do you guys in the same
We're
boat or no?
we both lean extrovert. Like she's probably more extroverted than I am, but we love hosting people. Like we had some great friends over Saturday night. Our guest pastor who came in, David, you've met him. We've had him on the podcast from Mission India. They came and ate with us and had a great time. And then church, had a great day at church, and then just all that's going on after church, and then we're getting ready to go on vacation coming up. So it's been a pretty busy season, but it's been a good season. God's been good, and we're kind of ramping up for the fall. I'm already looking ahead to August, which is just it's crazy that here we are. It's July 7th is when this podcast is going to be published. So, think about it. We're almost halfway through July. So, pretty exciting, but also, before you know it, the fall sneaks up on you. And so we're excited to dive back into another episode. I think something that me and Jay have been talking a lot about the last, gosh, it might be the last 2 or 3 weeks, is just the need for relationship amongst leaders, amongst pastors, because I had a good friend of mine in town, in our same town we're at. He's another pastor, and he was calling me, just bounce some ideas off of me of what he's thinking about for his church. And we're talking about different elements of vision casting, and their church is growing and experiencing, like, what do we do with this, and hey, what did you guys do with this? And we talked for 20 minutes. We're going to get together in a few weeks to go through all that he's thinking about. But you know we're better together when we're leaders, when we can open up and say, hey, what have you done? What are you sensing? What's God doing in your church? Or hey, I'm running into a wall right now. I don't know what to do about XYZ. And so I think we're better together. And I think we're coming back for another podcast, talking about it last week some, but really digging in this week on why it matters, not just to know we need each other, but to really like act on it, to really be connected to one another, to make that phone call, to decide to make time for relationship.
Yeah, and there's really no matter what pastor we talk to, they're going to say I'm busy. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of pressures. Everybody's got to plan their calendars. Everybody's got, you know, this meeting and that meeting. They're full of meeting weeks are full of meetings. I think really the call to action is extremely important, and we've been talking about it. I think for a long time, Josh, that we wanted the podcast to be more than just you and I talking and some random guests coming in from time to time, but really a connection point for other pastors who are out there. And many people, many pastors, I guess maybe even larger church pastors may have more connections and things of that sort. But what I find is when I'm talking to some of my friends who are not in the bigger churches, the mega churches, they seem like, hey, I'm kind of trying to figure this out and do it on my own.
Yeah.
And really, this idea of this cohort started with us batting around, going, we know some people. We'd like to take this to another level, to where we're interacting, we're connecting, we're really doing this ministry thing in together versus trying
Hmm.
to isolate ourselves and do our own thing, because there is similarities. Whether I'm in Orlando and you're in Tampa, there's still similarities. We're still dealing with people, we're still running churches, we're still working just in different spaces, but there's a lot of similarities that we can get to. So
Yeah.
really, this called a cohort is extremely important. And Josh, I know for you, I was thinking about your journey. You grew up going to in the Baptist sphere, and you went to the Baptist College of Florida, and you served at some Baptist churches. Now you find yourself at a non-denominational church, and you kind of maybe even sense, and I'll let you can expound on this a little bit more. You shared a little bit, but you're in a spot where you're looking for that network and that community as well. And those pastors, you have some in your community, and what that looks
Hmm.
like. And now's the time. There's a need for it, and going into the
Hmm.
fall, you want to carve
Yeah.
out time for that. So explain a little bit more about your journey of how you had, maybe you even had deeper roots at some times in your journey, and now you find yourself where you're
Hmm.
at. So share a little bit more about that.
I think being a youth pastor for, gosh, I don't know how many years did I do, was I a youth pastor? It seemed like, I think about 13 years, counting the time in college when I was part time at a little town in Iron City, Georgia, where we
Mhm.
started with two teenagers. And I looked at both of those teenagers and said, "All right, guys, let's start a youth ministry." And they were like, "What's that?" And so that's kind of where my journey started. And God's been really good to me. But yeah, I'm grateful for how I grew up. My dad's a pastor. We served, gosh, 5 different states growing up. So I kind of bounced around. Born in Oklahoma City, then we moved to Charlotte, then we moved to Texas, or no, Louisiana, then Texas, and then Florida. So seeing all those different environments and cultures and communities really helped me as I grew up, because I could relate to people, I think, maybe a little bit better, or maybe even understand where they're from. But being Southern Baptist, like, I line up, almost in every way, beliefs wise, with the Baptist faith, the message. I mean, a lot of it's just straightforward biblical truth. So when I came to the Bridge, the church has Baptist roots. Most of the people, that was their background. But just, we're a non-denominational, biblically sound, we're conservative evangelical church. So we're not officially connected. Uh, but most of my friends are probably have Baptist roots, like UJ and others. So I went to Baptist College of Florida, went to Liberty Online for my two masters. So, like, very much in the Baptist strain. But I've also always felt like I don't fit some of the molds that the Southern Baptists are known for. So, like, biblical, I can't talk today. When it comes to theology, like, we're right there together. But maybe in the way that we do ministry, and I don't necessarily probably fit in some of the boxes that most people would, a Baptist person. So yeah, so once I moved here, I left Jacksonville, which had a great network. As many of you have heard, Bob Bumgarner, so many other friends and pastors, that we would do lots of lunches and connect with all different types of churches. There's not as much of that here. Now, I've got some great friendships in our community, other pastors in this area, but not a real strategic, like, area wide pastoral support. So that was something I really sensed when I moved here. I was like, it's kind of, it's just kind of a challenge to build a network. And when we say network, I'm not just talking about someone that, like, you meet once and at a lunch and then, okay, well, see you later, but like a true friendship where you keep up, you connect, you talk, you share, you bounce ideas off of each other. So that's something that really, I think, for when I moved here, I was really sensing the need for it for myself. But now that you've left New England, where you had a great network there, you sense that in Orlando, right? I mean, that's something you've mentioned.
Well, yeah, and I think biblically speaking, I'm pretty conservative. I think I can compare to you when it comes to the Baptist world, missiology wise, like the how I practice
Yeah.
out that. Probably I differ quite a bit on some of those things, but yeah, I think it's this idea, and I think what differentiates what I'm talking about here. You say network, and a lot of people think automatically they go into some of the networks that we are very familiar with, whether it be like maybe even denominational networks or
Mm-hmm.
Acts 29, things of that sort. That's what you should automatically think of, and those things are great. But those things also, and those networks, I mean, I've been to the Acts 29 here in Orlando, great network, great people. But what I sense is we're not in the grind together. Still don't have guys outside of a few like you yourself that I can just text and be like, hey, what would you do about this? Or how would you do? That is
Mm-hmm.
where it's missing, is I don't have those guys that I'm in regular community with, not just for the sake of bouncing ideas off one another, but accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's checking on me. And I'm saying that, I'm not saying that as a plea of like, oh, nobody cares. Nobody's checking on me. You know what I mean? I've noticed that nobody's checking on me going, hey, how are you? People reach out and they need something, they want something, and again, those are
Mm-hmm.
great. I'm always trying to help other pastors, but
That's
no
right.
one's calling saying, hey, Jay, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
No one has asked that. No one. And I've been back in Florida for a year now, and no one's asked that. I haven't had anyone ask that. Which that's kind of crazy to think about, this idea that I am here church planting, trying to figure things out. I'm in a new area, but no one's called to check on me. Now, just compare that to what I was used to in Boston. Boston had a great brotherhood. There's some great people who went way before me who set the stage for that. People like David Butler's a name that I would throw out. Sean Sears is a name that I would throw out. Joe Souza is a name that these guys in Boston, they were like the
Right.
patriarchs of Boston, right? Curtis Cook. They went before us and they set the standard of like, hey, break down the walls. We're not competing with one another. We're not trying to
Mm-hmm.
compare when we get in a room. We're actually genuinely saying, hey, how's life? How are things going? We had
Yeah.
fun together. I mean, I threw axes with guys in Boston. I fished with guys in Boston. I stayed overnight with guys in Boston. And it was simply just, hey, how can we encourage? How can we support? How can we come alongside one another? I
Mm-hmm.
got put in rooms where very qualified leaders would come in and pour into us and share and give us keys and resources, and we could ask questions. And these are great leaders who would come in and do
Mm-hmm.
that. And there's one thing about listening to a podcast where we have Bob Bumgarner, and you'll be able to say this, right? There's there's one thing about going to a podcast and listening to Bob Bumgarner share some valuable truth, right? I got to get my notebook out. There's going to be some great things. But Josh, wouldn't you say there's another thing about sitting in a room with Bob Bumgarner where it's a back and forth conversation? It's
Yeah,
totally different.
yeah, but and he would say the same thing. He would say, content information is vital, but the relationship, the discussion, and I think what you're getting at, Jay, is it kind of hurts me to hear some of these things that you feel this way, and I know that that's probably not abnormal for most pastors to feel that way. Not in the sense of like you've seen people, you've talked to people, like you email, you're connecting, you're building partnerships in your community. But I think what you're getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is having people that care for your soul, that care for your like how you're really doing.
Right.
People that you can go, man, I feel like I don't want to I don't want to go to the office today. I'm exhausted, or I'm facing some stress. I'm facing some temptation in my life, or some struggle that I need you to hear from, and I want you to love me, but I want you to lean in and give me
Right.
some direction, because that's what's missing. And I think that is one of the keys, whether you are a denominational church or whether you're independent or non-denom, whatever the I don't care how many you're in, but if we're not able to get to that place where you can be real, I don't really think the cohort really is making a difference. It's not
Well,
really doing what it's supposed to be doing.
and I want to clarify. So I'm not Josh. We would differ in this. I'm not an emotional guy at all, right? And that's not being negative. Like, I'm not a guy who wants to sit around and share my emotions, and I don't want to cry, and I don't want to do things. That's just me, right? I'm being honest. That's me. That's just not my cup of tea.
And I
Um,
prefer to just sit around and cry all day.
well, I'm not insinuating that,
No.
Josh. But you would probably be okay, like cry, right? So I want you to hear me. What I'm getting at is there's a place and a
Mm-hmm.
time though where you can just share, like, we don't have to cry, but we could talk about, hey, look, yeah, that stinks.
Yeah.
That's not cool. I hate when that happens, or
Yeah.
I understand, I can relate to that, and then getting in a room. and not just getting content thrown at us where we're taking notes, like I was emphasizing with like a Bomb Bumgarner or Mac, like, but people like that, but where we can actually have discussion and dialogue, and we
Right.
can work together and collaborate and go, man, we can create systems and processes that'll work anywhere.
Mhm.
We can dive in and we can help solve problems with each other.
Mhm.
Somebody might have a problem, and three of us can get around and have this conversation and say, "Hey, let's solve that together."
Yeah.
And typically guys, I know guys want this because I talk to guys all the time, and they'll say, "Hey Jay, can you come up and can you speak about this topic?" Because we're wrestling through it. I can do that, but that's it's information. We're not in a room, we're not dialoguing. I actually love to do that kind of stuff. That's when I don't I love to preach, yes, but at the same time, if I can get into a room with four or five guys, women, men, women, whatever, and we can talk and we can chat, leaders of your church, and we can come up and solve some of the real issues, the real things that you're facing, that to
Mhm.
me gives me life as well.
Right.
Versus I can come preach on something, but that's just content information.
Mhm.
Versus let's get your leaders in a room. Let's get the men and women who are on leadership, who are making decisions, who are leading the
Mhm.
church in a room. Let's break open and say, hey, what are the key things that you're wrestling through right now? And how can we take a step
Yeah.
in the right direction? We're not going to solve them all, but how can we take
Mhm.
a step in the right direction? But
Yeah.
in order for that to happen, there has to be a relationship. There has to be
Mhm.
a trust, right? Nobody's going to
Mhm.
randomly call me that doesn't know me. Like Josh, you
Yep.
and I know each other, and you would trust me maybe in that. Don't answer that on the podcast in front of all the people listening. But you might trust me in
I
an environment
do.
like that. You might, but
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
everybody's going to. But if we
Mhm.
had a cohort of guys who were together, and we went through a journey together, and we learned to trust one another, all of a sudden now you have five or six guys that you can have come in and speak truth into your leadership. And there's something about hearing it from someone else. You could be saying it, Josh, you could say it 50 times to your team, but I could come in and say it once and they go, wow, that's so appealing. It makes you feel
Mhm.
like, what in the world have I been doing? It's just something different about a
Sure.
cohort of people. And I'm not looking for places where I can go and lead and things like that. I'm actually looking for that community, that relationship. Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what
Yeah.
the cohort's all about. And again, I'm going to stress this. I think every pastor would say they need
Mhm.
it, but I think we need to take action. And
Well,
what we're
what are they
trying to
going to
do is a
say?
little
They're
different.
going to say I don't have time. Like what do we that's most leaders. Well, I don't know if I can fit another thing in my schedule. So what's our answer to that? Because I
I
think
would say
I'm
this.
sitting there going, I need it, but I have
I would say
all this
this.
mountain of ideas and things we need to get going.
There's certain things we don't have time for, and there's certain things that we can't afford not to have time for. And I think
Mhm.
this is one of those things that we can't afford it. Right now, you are doing everything you can to keep your head above water, and you're doing all the tasks you need to do. You're checking every box, you're leading every meeting, you're doing all those things. But there's going to come a time like that's it's almost like a you know a it's dynamite ready to explode, and then it's going to explode,
Sure.
and that's what you hear from every pastor. And I'm not saying everybody's going to have a moral failure or something, they're going to go into some kind of issue, but every
Right.
pastor who gets to their breaking point, what they'll say is this didn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time,
Mhm.
and because you didn't make time, you couldn't afford the time to do that. And I think that's the thing, is nobody's going to have time. And really the cohort, the way we described it, Josh, was it's once a month on a Zoom call, right? And then it's once a quarter figuring out how we can make it work for people to come together. I'm already working on, and again,
Mhm.
here we go, breaking news. I'm already working on how. All right, I've been working on this. I haven't even told you this, Josh. I've been working on how we can help make it accessible to some pastors who say, I can't
Mhm.
afford to get out and get there. So maybe they have to, rent a car or whatever. I'm trying to figure out how we can make it affordable. So once a quarter, we
Mhm.
could get together
Yeah.
and we can make that work. I'm already working on how we can do that.
Yeah.
And
I've
this
got
is in
some ideas
addition
to
to everything
add
else.
because I think there's a need to get together and fellowship and have fun and then dive in as well. So there's a couple options that me and Jay are looking at for, maybe have a day and a half or something like that where we get together and we do something fun. We also dive in and really get into some deeper stuff.
I'm telling you, I'm really stoked about this and the opportunity for this.
Yeah.
And we really want to encourage. I want to encourage you, if you're listening, you're a pastor and you're at a church. I don't care what size church you're at, honestly. You could be at a church that's running 25, but you're going, hey, I want to do this. I want to take my leadership to another level. This is actually not a I don't think it's a great commit I don't think it's a huge commitment. You're talking
Yeah.
one section a month for a Zoom call, which we already do anyway, right?
Hmm.
And then it's once a quarter for an
Yeah.
in-person, and then maybe one other thing at the end if we can feel, and again, I want this to be super relational where we can fits the need in the
Hmm.
room. But in order for people to do that, we need them to take action. So, Josh,
Hmm.
let me ask you this: how are we going? If you're listening to podcasts, you're going, okay, I'm interested. All right,
Hmm.
they're not signing on committed line, right? We're not making them they don't have to read the,
Hmm.
the agreement. There's no fine print or small print here. There's
Hmm.
no fee involved. How do they get information when we say, hey, we want to go ahead and unveil how, reveal how it all works out? How do they sign
Right.
up to know more about the cohort? How do they do it?
So you can go to our website, thepastorpod.com, and there's going to be a button at the top that's going to say pastoral cohort, or you can go to any of our profiles on social media. There's a link tree. There's a link for an interest into this awesome opportunity. This is all free. We're doing this just because we feel called to do it. We definitely want it to be a blessing to you. So pastors, if you are saying, hey, you know what, I think I could, I think I want to know more about that. You don't have to commit to it. But we'd love, we have a small group that we're kind of capping it off to. I think we're thinking 12 to 15 at the most for this first cohort. So it'll be a tight group, but also there's going to be some great learnings. We're developing some real important key truths that we think is most relevant for every pastor in this time of our culture. And then we also, like Jason, build some extra discussions that are built just around you and your church that we can do along with that, and learn from each other. I cannot wait to learn from who comes and hearing what God's doing in their life. But this is going to be just an extension of the Pastor Pod. We're going to keep the Pastor Pod going with guests, and we're going to be ramping up for the fall. We're going to kind of take a little bit of a week break, maybe a week and a half break, and then we're going to come back really ready to rock and roll for the fall. And we've got some really good topics coming up, and then also have some great guests coming up. We have Pastor Mark Halleck from Calvary Church in Colorado coming up at the end of July, and he's really doing some incredible work in church multiplication and how they're really trying to reach Colorado and beyond with the gospel. So we've got some great guests coming up, and if you know of any guests that you say, you know what, I wish you could have this person to come on, you could also let us know by emailing us at thepastorpod@gmail.com. If you're a pastor and you say, hey, I'd like to come on and share something and share a topic that you're learning from, you could also let us know. That's something that'd be on your heart. But this cohort is something we've talked about for probably a year. Is that about right? Maybe longer.
Well, again, we always knew we wanted to be more than just sitting on a screen talking. We wanted to be more than that. And so I would say this, Josh, I think, over the next few weeks, so by the end of July, we really need you to reply and tell us, hey, look, you're interested. I want to be in on the Pastor Pod.
Hmm.
And, just fill out the form real quick. It's just your name or your email. That gives us an email list where we can then schedule something to say, hey, guys, this is what it is. This is what we want you to be a part of by the end of July, so that in August we can start laying the more of the groundwork, front work, and then by the fall we're running and going with the
Yeah.
cohort. And
Hmm.
so there's your marching orders. I want to encourage you, if you're a pastor and you're going, you know what, I really don't have people I'm bouncing ideas off of outside of your
Hmm.
sphere of staff, because even with your staff, I'll say this real quick, even your staff, they may not be giving you, sometimes they don't even give their
Right.
unbiased replies to whatever you're saying, because they're your staff, they're your team, they want to support you, they want to come alongside of you, and you may not be getting what you really need there as well. So I want to encourage you, take some time, consider it, pray about it, and you just let us know your interest, and we'll go from there. But I'm really pumped about the cohort. I really am pumped about the idea of having some people we can get together with via Zoom, in person once in a while, and really bounce ideas, stretch each other, things of that sort. So,
So the Pastor Pod Pastoral Cohort. That's a long name, but we
whew,
probably come up with something a lot more exciting, like the Healthy Leader podcast, the Healthy Leader Cohort or something like that. Healthy pastors, that's something I've been thinking through. So,
the
um,
PPPC,
yeah, I think that really rolls off the tongue well.
Pastor Pod Pastoral Cohort. PPPC.
Yes.
PPPC. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like
Everybody's
it at
like,
all.
that's terrible. But we're going to have a whole name for it. It's all going to be really clear here in a couple of weeks. But just wanted to just prime the pump, invite you to be involved. We definitely know that there's plenty of people that just are incredible leaders in their church that listen to this podcast as well. And I invite you to start praying for the pastors that are going to join this cohort, that it'll be a blessing. Something that I know me and Jay really believe at the very core, that we're really better together, and that we want to help each other succeed in what God has called each of us to do. So I believe that pastors are better husbands, leaders, just greater leaders overall when they have people cheering them on, that have accountability, where they can say, "Hey, I really am struggling," or just, "Hey, I need help. I've got some things I need feedback on." We're trying to connect people to our small groups. We're struggling with this area of our structure as a church. We're dealing with all kinds of questions from the community. How do we reach our community most effectively with the gospel? So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about. But yeah, if you're interested, you can go to the website. There's a link there. You can go to our social media and let us know on our link tree. You can sign up for just being on the interested list, or you can just shoot us an email, thepastorpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're always glad to hear from our listeners, and looking forward to the fall.
Yes, sir. So, Josh, you pretty much wrapped it up for us. That being said, thanks so much for listening in, guys. We really do appreciate it, and look forward to connecting with you guys soon. From Josh and myself here at the Pastor Pod. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.